Welcome back. Seems like it was just last week that we saw you. So today we're going to do another show. Anything that I say is not designed to replace your medical care. Check with your doctor before implementing any of the information that we're going to share today.
Wonderful. So,
All right.
as usual, we come on the air on behalf of all of you. And so, to that end, we're going to get right to our questions. Let's start with Claudia from YouTube. I started taking 500 milligrams of niacin. The side effects were awful: diarrhea, flush, vomiting, dizziness. After taking just one, I fainted a half hour later, and my grandson called 911. Boy, that's a powerful effect. Any alternatives you'd recommend for Claudia?
One thing about niacin you should know going into this, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize, is that it's going to create a flushing vasodilation effect. Typically, it's going to feel like a sunburn with itchiness, and then it can actually create other symptoms as well for some people. So, unfortunately, you had to go through that. Um, okay, so what I think the best thing to do when you're taking 500 milligrams is to take less. You can break off a capsule, just take small amounts of it, maybe 1/8, or just a tiny bit, and take that so you get a mild flushing over a period of days or weeks, and then gradually increase it. Now, you can buy the no flush niacin. The problem with that, it doesn't create the amazing effects that niacin does. So it's definitely for some people, they just can't tolerate that effect, but so therefore they can't take niacin. But for most people, they just kind of tolerate it. But I don't mind it anymore. I've got used to it. I kind of like the feeling because it's like you're getting this massive circulation going on. But yeah, unfortunately, you had to go through that. And anytime you take niacin, you're going to get a flush.
Interesting. Okay, let's go to Anja from YouTube. My mom has been diagnosed with Parkinson's. We're all sorry to hear that. What supplements would help her with the sort of associated chronic fatigue?
You said Parkinson's, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think the fatigue probably be maybe a lesser thing if you're just trying to get rid of fatigue. But the foundation of Parkinson, we got neuroinflammation in the brain. So the most important thing is to get on a low carb, ketogenic diet that's healthy, that will actually reduce your inflammation in the brain. And then that way the brain can actually live on ketones, and that can act as an anti-inflammatory for your brain. Very helpful. As far as supplements go, there's some great information on, believe it or not, niacin for the brain, as well as vitamin B2. But I would take that in a whole, like in a complete B complex, just to support the brain and support those pathways.
All right, good luck with that. Kingdom Church from YouTube. What's the best way to reduce the prostate naturally? I guess it's enlarged.
There's some data that talks about enlarged prostate coming from too much testosterone. But here's the question. If that was true, then how do you explain the prostate enlarging as we get older and the testosterone goes way down? So I've done several videos on this. I think really we have a problem with lower testosterone, and might create and then the environmental estrogen mimickers are really at fault. And this is the plastics, the chemicals, the pesticides, herbicides, the fungicides, the heavy metals. All these things mimic estrogen, and that can actually make the prostate get bigger. But there is some great data on helping even normalize the different PSA, the different markers for prostate enlargement using testosterone. But do your research and look at that. I think you'll find it quite interesting.
All right, very good. Let's go to the elegant Chanel 4. Lynn from Rumble. I'm a 55-year-old woman, 4 years on keto. Cholesterol is 318, LDL is 96. HDL is 96. Wow. LDL is 212, and triglycerides are 48. Do you recommend any other test than the homocysteine test? Does that all sound like good numbers?
So let me just tell you, one of the problems in medicine is that we we do what's called screenings, right? Screenings are not prevention. They're just basically watching the stage of disease and then treating it, usually with a medication, once you start getting early symptoms. And then cholesterol is one big indicator of that. They look at cholesterol. Do you realize that over 50% of the people that die of heart attacks have normal cholesterol? So cholesterol, having high cholesterol, does not increase the death from heart attacks. So what I suggest you do is you get an advanced lipid profile test where you're looking at the particle size. Watch my video on that. I think it's called the two types of LDL. So you want you'll probably find that if you're doing keto, your low density lipoprotein are going to be lower than the high density. Also, the other most important factor is to look at insulin resistance. Insulin resistance, because this whole cholesterol number, the cholesterol doesn't float through your blood like you think. It's packaged in different proteins, lipoproteins. And there's a lot of false information in that area. I don't want to open the can of worms, but you can watch my videos on that.
Very good. Hope that all resolves itself. Let's go to the Swiss 1291 from Rumble. I take niacin 3 times a day with just 100 milligrams. Would that be a better way to reduce the flush effect, speaking of niacin?
Oh, of course, yes. You're going to have less flushing. And, the idea is to kind of gradually work up to something you can tolerate. And so it's interesting. If you look at Hoffer's book on niacin, I think it's the real story behind niacin, which is fascinating research. These amazing benefits occur from using higher doses of niacin, like even above 500. I just like mind blowing. So, but to get there, sometimes it's best to start off small, maybe even 50 milligrams, and then gradually work up to 500 or more. But there's all these very expensive supplements people are buying now. They're called NAD or versions of this molecule in the mitochondria, which is called NAD, that helps you live longer. But you don't have to buy those, because the less expensive version of that is vitamin B3, niacin. Niacin will turn into that. And so niacin is very, very important to keep the NAD levels high enough so it can actually help increase your life. And it does it through a lot of different ways, but one way is just to allow the mitochondria to help you extract energy from food and turn it into energy. So it really supports the mitochondria.
Well, very encouraging. Teresa from Facebook, is it okay to take milk, thistle, and choline together for the liver with a meal or on an empty stomach?
I would take it with a meal. I would take it with a meal. They are both of those are protective, and they do different things to the liver. So I think with a meal it might be a little bit better, but it'll still work with an empty stomach. But yeah, a lot of people need choline. You can get choline from egg yolks and eat the whole egg, but also liver has choline too. But choline is really important in neurotransmitters, preventing a fatty liver, and many other things.
Carmen from YouTube, please do a video on how to manage chronic anxiety. That's a horrible thing. Thanks. And I bet you've done that.
I think I have about 70 videos on that, but okay, fine. I'll do another one.
Good for you, Carmen. I hope that helps. That's a terrible affliction. Marcia from Facebook, would a sauna, and I love saunas, would a sauna be beneficial for fighting the flu?
I think so, because it's going to increase the temperature in the body, and viruses. You can kill a virus by having a fever, because you cook it off. So viruses, they don't like the heat. So heating your own body up, I think, could help speed up the process.
All right, let's go to Rick from YouTube. Is it safe to consume butter moderately? How much is too much butter?
So I craved butter when I was a kid, and I would literally eat a pound a day. Not every day. And maybe that might be a little too much. But if you're going to eat butter, make sure it's grass fed. But you know, I don't have an amount that you should not eat more of, but I think I wouldn't start adding it to the diet as much. I mean, especially if you're trying to lose weight, because we want to get your body to burn its own fat. But even if you're not, I would cook with it, put it on different things, but I wouldn't necessarily just like go out of your way to eat a half a stick of butter or even a stick of butter. Um, um, so, but cook with it, use it. I wouldn't worry about trying to go low on butter. I think it's a good fat.
All right, very good. Thank goodness for that. Okay, this person's handle is Diced Gaming from YouTube. Is there a difference in absorption effectiveness between liquid vitamin D3 and powdered vitamin D3?
Not much. Not much difference. Just a different form. It's easier to take in the liquid for some people, but you'll get depending on how much you take. They're going to tell you on the label how much it is. So you want vitamin D3, not D2, and you want to get it from a company that uses a natural source. I'm not biased of my own, but we do use a natural source from sheep's wool. So it's not from a synthetic source.
Okay, there you have it. Let's go to our first quiz question of the day, and there it is, Doc.
Okay, what percentage of the diet contributes as a root cause to chronic disease?
All right, audience, leap on that. And let's go all the way to India, if we can, to our friend, and I'm sorry, Arun. I know I've said it wrong, and he'll correct it for me, but it's late there, so we want to get him to bed as soon as possible. Go ahead with your one question, Arun. Did I say that right? Say it for us, please.
It's Arun, but that's all right.
All right, thank you for forgiving me.
Hi, Dr. Berg. How are you? All
Hello.
good? Right. So we've been following you for the first 3 years, and we have been trying our hands on with our intermittent fasting, etc., etc. So a couple of questions that came to our mind. When I say we, me and my wife is what I meant. So first question is around what duration and frequency of fasting is required for us to actually prevent cancer? Second, can we build muscle while fasting, both intermittent and occasional prolonged fasting?
Okay, so the first question is, I think there's two categories of people that do great on fasting, and I'm talking about prolonged fasting. And for those people, they need to do more fasting, especially if they have some weight to lose. And as far as preventing cancer, the best thing to do is to not have a certain set type of pattern with fasting, but switch it up. You fast for, do one meal a day, and then you do 3 days. Okay, then you go back to one meal a day, and then maybe go longer. If you did that, maybe even once a month, some prolonged fasting, I think that would greatly help you prevent cancer and just keep it as a routine thing, eating healthy, because you're going to strengthen your mitochondria. You're going to bulletproof your mitochondria. You're going to, there's so many other factors that strengthen the immune system as well. So that's going to greatly help you with cancer. Okay. But there's other people that can't fast very long. They don't feel well on it. And I don't recommend then doing prolonged fasting unless you get cancer. But at the very minimum, I would do 2 meals a day, no snacking. I think for everyone, that would be like a standard protocol. So you have lunch, dinner, no breakfast, just no snacking at all. Then the next question, you wanted to know, can you build muscle with fasting? I don't think you can actually build muscle while you're fasting because you're not eating anything, but you can help support your muscle once you start eating. Because when you're fasting, you are stimulating growth hormone. When you're fasting, you are helping insulin resistance, and both of those factors are going to be important in building muscle. So, and then also supporting your testosterone, because insulin resistance really destroys your testosterone. So I think I would do it to build muscle, but I would also add in there a really good workout program that focuses on intensity of muscles. And then in addition to that, make sure you have sufficient protein. If you are from India, you probably are a vegetarian or a vegan, right?
No, we are non-vegetarian. We eat meat.
Okay, good. Then you'll have more chance of building muscle even more, because then you could actually give the muscles what it really needs. The other thing with muscle, though, it's important to keep your testosterone in a healthy range. And one of the big problems with that is plastics in your cookware. So just really get a good filter. Make sure you don't use the microwave with plastics. Make sure that you are very aware of this plastic, so you're not drinking water out of the plastic bottles, because the plastic accumulates and it can block your testosterone probably more than any other thing. So those are some really key things if you want to build muscle.
Got it. Thanks, Dr. Berg.
You're welcome.
What a great guest. Thanks so much. And now you may go get some shut-eye or lift some weights or fast or whatever you like. All right, let's see if we have some answers to quiz question number 1. And Terry does not mess around. He's already assembled it, and it asks, what percentage of the diet contributes as a root cause to chronic disease? And 90% of our respondents say it's between 80 to 100%, 5% say it's 50 to 80%, and 5% say it's less than 50%. Boy, they're all over the place. Doc, who's right?
Well, I think this piece of data is probably very strategically suppressed. It's hard to find that out because there's all these things that tend to block that percentage, but it's roughly about 80%. I think it could be a little bit more, a little bit less, but this connection between your food and your health has been hidden, I think, on purpose. I mean, think about this: like, you go to the doctor, do they ask you about your food? Not usually. Do they connect your disease with the food? No. Do they get training in food therapy or nutrition? Not very much. And then on top of that, we have the huge conflicts of interest between the junk food industry and the different agencies like the USDA, the American Dietetic Association, American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association. So there's a lot of conflicts of interest, revolving doors, a lot of corruption going there. And then you have on top of that all the over-specialized doctors, right? Every doctor is so specialized that they're not necessarily trained to look at the whole body. If a GI doctor has someone with I don't know, maybe a depression, they're going to send them to a psychiatrist. And then, so you have all these different doctors keep the body so separate. And then of course, if you ever use Wikipedia, it's going to, a lot of times it'll say that disease, oh, we don't know what causes it, it's unknown, but we need to do more research. But I do use Wikipedia on a regular basis just to find out what to do in the opposite direction. So.
All right. Well, let's go to Janet from Facebook. Why was ox bile removed from your cod liver oil supplement? Uh-oh, you've been caught, Dr. Berg.
Well, because we put it in a pearl. So now we no longer have a powder, we have a high quality oil. And to put bile salts in there is impossible. So, you're just going to have to look at other ways to increase your bile. But most people can digest this oil. You're not taking a lot of it, and you normally should be able to digest it with your own gallbladder and bile's help. So I don't think there'll be a problem with you taking it. The advantage of cod liver oil is that it tends to give you additional things that go way beyond these omega-3 fatty acids. So you get the active form of vitamin A, retinol. You get the active form of vitamin D3. So not the active form, but you just get vitamin D3. And that way you can get some additional benefits from cod liver oil. But if you're just taking like 2 pearls a day, you're probably not going to need bile. My other product that I had in a powder, unfortunately, they sold that company. But I actually like what we have now because it's a really high quality oil that is fresh, and it's not going to go bad very easily because it's all protected against oxygen. And I think I think people will really appreciate it.
I'm going to consider that a step up. So that's great. Let's. Here's an interesting question. TJ from Rumble, have you researched or heard about the use of nicotine patches to reverse Parkinson's?
Well, this brings us back to what I talked about with niacin, nicotinic acid. That's kind of a derivative of B3. So there is some interesting data on the rates of Parkinson's are lower in smokers. So therefore, we should all start smoking, right, Steve? Maybe not, but some people use a nicotine patch. Um, it's kind of an interesting area to look at. I don't think I would use nicotine patches to help that. There is an interesting drug that if I had Parkinson's, I would probably consider because it also increases aging. It's called Deprinyl. Now, I don't know a lot about Deprinyl. I'm not specialized in drugs, but there's some interesting research on just Deprinyl extending aging in general. So if it can also help Parkinson's and you've tried everything else, maybe that might be something that you might want to consider. But the thing is, like, I don't recommend drugs. I recommend taking as natural things, and then if that doesn't work, then maybe look at it. But if a drug extends your life, I don't know if it extends the quality, but if it can also extend your life, maybe there's some benefit to it.
All right. Let's go to quiz question number 2. There you have it, doctor.
How much does exercise in percentage help you lose weight versus the diet?
Interesting question. I can't wait to hear that. Let's go to Tracy from YouTube. Can you take cod liver oil without having a gallbladder?
Yes, you can, because you still produce bile, but it trickles down. I think what you should monitor is your stools. If the stools are floating, and then you probably need more bile to actually help you digest the fat. So then the fat gets digested and it's not undigested, which then makes it float. Also, the color of the stool, if it's very, very light or gray, you're lacking bile. Also, if you have tarry stool, that can also mean that you need to add more bile salts to your diet because you don't have a gallbladder, so you have to add more when you eat. And then maybe you could take that cod liver oil with the meal as one thing. There's an enzyme that helps you break down this oil or fat in the pancreas. It's called lipase, and that's still going to work on the bile, work on the fats. But the bile salt tends to act as a detergent. And if you ever take oil and detergent and mix together and shake it up, it'll make this foamy thing where the detergent will break down this fat to a certain level, but then the pancreas enzymes will break it down even further.
All right, let's see. Let's go to Lisa from Facebook. I have shingles right now. Ouch. Would it help to apply my reuteri yogurt on the bumps?
That's an interesting question because some people apply this yogurt on the skin and do fantastic. Try it and see what happens. I'm sure it's not going to cause any problem. Just don't mention my name and when you do this in public. But I think also high doses of vitamin D3 could also be beneficial. So I watched my latest video on shingles because I do have some additional information on that.
All right, very good. And Roman wants to know from YouTube, what are your thoughts on DNA testing to determine your proclivity for certain diseases? I'm not sure I'd want to know.
No, you want to know, Steve. I think I'm going to do a video on DNA testing because I did find another company that I really like because they look at the entire pathways, the whole system of genes. Because when you're looking at your genes as one gene isolated, not looking at the whole biochemical genetic pathways, then if you can see the whole system together, you can really get a picture of what's happening in your body as far as your weak links, especially as you get older and these problems start becoming more emphasized. I mean, I think it's important to know where your weak links are, where you're vulnerable. I'll give you an example. myself. So I have certain genes that that make it so I don't really get filled up very easily. So it's very easy for me to keep eating and snacking, especially if I start, especially if there's chemicals in the food. So with me, I can't just have one. I'll have to have the whole bag. That is me. So that's good to know because then it's like, you might say, well, I have weak willpower. Well, maybe your genetics are causing this problem too. And then that means you have to work harder at not buying it, not keeping it in the house, really making sure maybe you have more nutrient dense, maybe more protein for your meals. So you're less tendency to, eat after that. Um, but then on the flip side, I have some additional protective genes that are it's a little bit rare. It's like, wow, I have a lot of genes that are also protective against a lot of problems. So even though I have genes that cause a lot of inflammation, I still have some protection there that's good. And the type of exercise that my body thrives on is high intensity powered type exercises, which is true. My body should have been a lumberjack. I mean, um, so I should have been a lumberjack to support my body because I thrive on high intensity exercise that have power type movements, and so that's interesting. I'm not built for a long distance runner type thing, so I'm going to do a video on this. I think it's important, and you really only need to do this test once to really figure things out. But stay tuned for more information on that topic.
Okay, very good. Let's see. We have more answers from our astute audience. On the question was, how much does exercise in percentage help you lose weight versus diet? 75% of respondents say it's 20 to 50%. 15% of our respondents say it's more than 50%. And 10% say it's less than 20%. And I believe that latter.
So believe it or not, there is a massive campaign by the junk food industry to really push that the people need to exercise more to kind of take your attention off diet. And I can give you proof of that. But the truth is that you can't outrun a bad diet. So the data on exercise is, as far as weight loss, is about 15%. Now, there are exceptions to the rule for sure, but on average, it's about 15%. So if you think that I'm just going to eat what I want and I'll just exercise more, it's probably not going to work for you. So 15% is not a lot, but I still recommend exercising. But the point is that if you're trying to lose weight, you better emphasize or put attention on your diet as the most important thing, because that contributes about 85% to your weight loss. So why would you want to focus on something that's more trivial than more important?
Well, I tell you, I have a family member, which will go unnamed, that in high school was the only person to gain weight in cross country using that same theorem. Thought, well, I'm running, so I can eat whatever I want. Well, you can, but it's interesting. Gained weight, so there you have it. All right, while the audience is digging into the next question, let's find out if anyone is listening to the show. So we'd like to say a good day to all our viewers joining us today from the UK, Canada, Mexico, excuse the breath, Italy, Albania, Ethiopia, Japan, the Virgin Islands, Ghana, Armenia, Greece, Austria, Belgium, Tanzania, South Africa, Brunei, Sweden, Jordan, Oman, Denmark, Chile, Bermuda, the Philippines, Malaysia, Pakistan, Poland, Romania, Colombia, Jamaica, Scotland, American Samoa, Taiwan, New Zealand, Jakarta, haven't heard from them for a while, Spain, the Dominican Republic, Switzerland, Germany, Hong Kong, St. Lucia, I think it is, Egypt, Estonia, France, Botswana, Brazil, Qatar, the Netherlands, and all across these United States. Terry, I hope I pronounced most of those correctly. I meant well if I didn't. All right, and let's see, why don't we go to Inna from Facebook. What are your suggestions to manage or eradicate lipoma?
Lipomas are these little fat pads underneath your skin, and the I have not been successful trying to figure that out, but I think it has to be some type of protective mechanism where your body's trying to encapsulate something. That's my only theory. I don't have a solution for that other than a surgery, which you can do completely awake. They numb it, do a little cut, and they pull it out, and they sew you back up. So I know there's data that shows that it's related to liver, but we don't really know yet exactly what causes that. So I'm sorry, I don't have a solution.
All right, have it hacked out. Move on, for goodness sakes. All right, let's ask quiz question number 3, and there it is, Dr. Berg.
Okay, which 2 trace minerals have the most influence to increase testosterone? Just throw an I in that increase.
Pardon my haste in posting that, audience, and I'm glad that Dr. Berg was able to decipher it. Let's go back to social media with Akil from YouTube. Why would I be getting sharp pains in my chest every time I consume something that contains sugar?
It's your body's ways of telling you to not eat sugar. Now, what's probably happening is that when you eat, there's a little tiny interaction or junction between the ducts, the tubes from the gallbladder and the tubes from the pancreas that kind of enter a certain little muscular ring valve. It's called the sphincter of Oddi, and it's a little thing that goes into the small intestine. And a lot of times that gets kind of overly tight or goes into a spasm because you ate something in a refined way, and that can refer pain into through the vagus. I'm sorry, through the phrenic nerves, and these 2 nerves that come underneath your rib cage up to your neck. It can create pressure in those nerves, and then that can cause discomfort through here, sometimes in the chest. Sometimes there's pressure underneath your rib cage that puts pressure on the liver, which then puts pressure on the heart. So it could be any one of those things. But you know what? I just wouldn't eat it. It's like every time I eat this poison, I feel this symptom. Okay, well, guess what? Just stop eating.
All right, very good. Why don't we go to another wonderful guest in our green room, and her name is Mary, and she's from Reuteri, Ohio. Mary, go ahead with your one question for Dr. Berg, please.
Hi, Dr. Berg. I am
Hi.
postmenopausal. I am on progesterone and testosterone therapy only because I am estrogen dominant. I also have the MTHFR variant. My main problem is histamine intolerance. And I guess my question is, what should be my priority? What should I focus on to kind of help wrap these up?
Yeah. So you're describing a gene that has to do with this complex thing I'm not going to get into called methylation, which by the way can also increase histamine levels if you are either under methylated or over methylated. So here's one little mistake. I don't know if you're doing this, but when you buy a supplement, if you have that genetic issue, you're buying a supplement that's more methylated folate. It's kind of methylfolate or methylcobalamin versus the other versions. It's hard to find a supplement that isn't like way too high. So if you're dealing with methylfolate, if you could find something at 200 micrograms, which I don't think you're going to find, you probably find it at 500. I would stick with that. Go on the lower side because too much methylation can cause that histamine reaction too. And then with the methylcobalamin, find something as low as possible as well. I think maybe if you can find something, maybe 500 micrograms to 1 gram or 1 milligram, that would be great. But I will say that that's one factor. And then also a lot of these histamines are occurring because there's some liver issues that could be improved if you took TUDCA. TUDCA will thin the bile and make things flow better through the liver. And then there'll be less bile salts kind of backing up, which then could also create a histamine reaction. So I would use the TUDCA. I would lower those methyl vitamins, and then of course avoid any type of synthetic ones that are in processed foods.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Wonderful.
welcome.
Thanks so much. I appreciate a great call, Mary. And I hope, don't hold on there because spring's around the corner. We'll get to it. All right, let's see. Let's go back to, let's go to quiz question number 3, an interesting one, which I introduced a typo into, which should say, which 2 trace minerals have the most influence to increase testosterone? And 78% of our respondents say it's zinc and magnesium. 12% say it's zinc and copper.
The testosterone, and why testosterone is so important, because the majority of estrogen people have, it comes from testosterone too, both men and women. So we have a situation where we have this very important testosterone that has a lot of different functions, including preventing muscle loss as you get older. It has a huge connection to supporting your bones. It has a huge factor over your mood, your sleeping, insulin, making insulin sensitive, and making sure that your inflammation is not too high. And this is interesting because it actually acts as an anti-inflammatory, a very potent one. So as we get older, because of all the plastics, it kind of goes down. And then how can we improve that? Well, zinc is definitely very essential to help you make testosterone. But regardless of how much testosterone you have in the blood, the question is, how do we get it inside the cells? Well, there's a certain trace mineral that a lot of people don't know about that allows you to absorb it into the cells, and that is iodine, another trace mineral or mineral that a lot of people are deficient in because they think in their mind that they're getting enough iodine from their sea salt. You can't get it. You can't get hardly any iodine anymore in sea salt. And even our foods, unless the animal consumes it, the chicken consumes it, it's not going to go in the food. So are you doing seaweed? Are you doing sea kelp? Are you doing shellfish? Are you doing seafood enough? If you're not, then you might want to look at adding a good sea kelp into your diet to actually increase your testosterone to go in that cell. That could be the reason why you have low T.
All right, here's our next question with correct spelling. There you go, Doc.
Okay. Which organ accumulates the most microplastics?
Those yucky things. Okay, let's go over to Teresa from YouTube. Please share your advice for removing parasites from the body, particularly in the shoulder, neck, and chest areas. Is that a common occurrence?
Well, I don't know. I would consume a lot of those antimicrobial herbs in your diet on a regular basis. That would be like garlic, onion, thyme, oregano. So I would do that. And then I would also take a supplement called wormwood extract. And that's a good one for parasites. And there's a lot of other ones, but I think I would stick with that. And hopefully that will help deworm you. The other thing too is to make sure your stomach is very acid. So betaine hydrochloride might be a good supplement to take, because if your stomach is not acid enough, and then here you are eating food that has a parasite or worm in it, it could get through the stomach and get down into your system.
Okay, I hope you get rid of them little critters. That sounds awful. Let's go to Kelly from Facebook. What's the best way to manage or eliminate eczema in my children? My daughter and grandson both have it. That's sad.
I think it's really related to diet. And I would imagine they're eating something they shouldn't be eating, high in the omega-6 fatty acids, low in the omega-3 fatty acids. Get them on a healthier diet for sure. And then, of course, the other thing that anything related to skin, whether eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, give them vitamin D. Do the liquid. If they're kids, give them 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3 every single day. See what happens. It might just help them.
All right, Salmon from Facebook. What's the best way to treat chronic pancreatitis?
I think you got to be careful about that condition because it can lead to a lot of problems. So I would one way to keep the inflammation of the pancreas is to really understand there's two purposes of the pancreas. One is digestion. The other one is endocrine related. And so don't stress the pancreas out. Okay, so that means don't overeat sugar and starches and carbs, and then also make sure you're eating healthy food that is not so cooked or processed. So then you can actually you're not forcing the pancreas to come up with these enzymes to break down this dead food all the time, right? So that's one thing. But also, the TUDCA will thin the bile that crosses over to the, the pancreatic duct as well. And I think TUDCA has one interesting effect for pancreatitis. So that's what I would do if I were you, and then reevaluate to see if that took the inflammation out. But it's usually kind of something that's blocking the duct that's then backing up into the pancreas. So TUDCA will thin that bile, open up the drainage, so to speak.
All right, very good. I tell you what, I'm getting smarter because of your questions and certainly the audience's answers. They just get right on it, do a lot of research. Which organ accumulates the most microplastics? Our astute audience says 60%, or let's see, 60% say it's the brain. I hope not. 20% say it's the liver. 10% say it's the kidneys, and 10% say it's the large or small intestines. Tell me it's not the brain.
It is the brain.
Ouch.
In fact, it accumulates up to even in some cases 30 times more than these other organs, 30 times more. So they've done a study and it showed that people are retaining like 7 grams of plastics, microplastics in their brain. And there's a much higher correlation between dementia and high levels of plastics, which is pretty much common sense, right? Apparently, these plastics do go through the blood-brain barrier. So you just have to be very aware of plastics in your diet and not using like Teflon pans and different things. And the water supply is the big one. You want to get a good water filter unless you're doing spring water. But yeah, this is a huge problem. And it's just recently going worse and worse and worse. So we better quickly change things. Hopefully, there'll be someone going into a certain part of government that can actually help straighten out some of the corruption. Like even in the endocrine disruptor section of the EPA, there's a subcommittee. There's an endocrine disruptor subcommittee members in that committee. And if you look at the membership list, it's like a lot of them are chemical companies. I'm like, wait a second, why are chemical companies partnering with an agency that is over endocrine disruptors? Like, isn't that a conflict of interest? So hopefully all that will be straightened out because we have to get these chemicals out of our food supply and our environment.
Well, I think people are working on that now. Let's see. Alan from Facebook, what would be the best natural replacement for synthroid or levothyroxine? Isn't that for the thyroid or something?
Yeah, I think
Levothyroxine.
there's Armour thyroid is a good one, and the reason why doctors don't like to use it because it's hard to regulate, but it's a natural form that has not just T4, it has T3, it also has calcitonin, it has the whole package. So that's something that I think would be very smart to take, and it's going to give you probably more benefits. But again, that's just my opinion. I don't know for sure, but yeah, I would do that.
Okay, here's a very technical question from Amal, I think, from YouTube. As a type 1 diabetic on the carnivore diet, I've noticed my liver keeps producing glucose despite an increase in my basal insulin. I suspect that glycogen nolysis, if I said that right, and gluconeogenesis are both at play. What are your thoughts, Doc? Can you decode that?
So what happens is whether you're a type 1 or type 2 diabetic, diabetes, you're going to have insulin resistance, okay? And it's going to be in the liver, which means that your body is not going to be able to absorb sugar in the liver that well. And there's certain tissues in the body that depend on sugar, not many, but there are a handful. I think it's a part of the kidney, part of the eye, um, also even well, there's about 4 different other tissues. But anyway, what happens is that to make that sugar, the thermostat for the liver is going to be like, wait a second, we're not getting enough sugar. So it'll start making more sugar. When you have insulin resistance, the liver makes more sugar. So when you're checking your blood sugars of being a diabetic or a pre-diabetic, sometimes like you're not eating any sugar, but your blood sugar is high. Like, what's going on? That's because there's something, your body's making new sugar out of other things like protein or even fat or even ketones. And that's called gluconeogenesis, the creation of making new glucose. So yes, this is why, especially in the morning, your glucose is high despite you not eating sugar. And what you need to focus on is just keep improving your insulin resistance over time, because over time that will get better. So how do you do that? Well, apple cider vinegar before bed would be beneficial. Having enough zinc, potassium, magnesium, vitamin D, all these are really important. Berberine is a really good one because it mimics metformin, which addresses insulin resistance. So if you start working on that over time and then doing fasting as well, that's going to keep getting better and better and better over time. And then your blood sugars will come down.
All right, why don't we continue on the blood sugar thing with our final quiz question of the day. There you go, Doc.
Okay. Which one of these rids brain fog, which usually comes from low blood sugar, the fastest? Carbs, protein, or fat?
Climb on it, audience. Let's go back to the audience. Let's see. Agnes from Facebook. Do you have any advice for ladies with endometriosis?
Yeah, that follows the same line as fibroids. And one of the best remedies for that would be high doses of, you guessed it, vitamin D3. I would be taking 30, maybe 40,000 IUs of vitamin D3 with the K2 and the magnesium, and see if it doesn't help you. Because I did a video on this, and there's something really interesting about estrogen, the tissue in the uterus, around the uterus, that I explain why vitamin D will work for that.
Okay, let's go to Maureen from Facebook. Wants to know what she can do to improve extremely dry and flaky skin. Sorry, Maureen.
I think the best thing is going to be a good high quality omega-3 fatty acid from like cod liver oil or some fish oil, and then consuming those foods too, sardines, salmon, and avoiding all seed oils, which are really industrial oils. So you want to avoid those. And then eating healthy. That would be something really important. And that probably will handle your skin issue very quick.
Okay, Jack from Facebook. What is the best fasting pattern to help the pancreas? Can you help the pancreas that way?
Yeah, you're taking think about, Steve, this might be shocking, but people, every time they eat, they force the pancreas to work, right? And if we're eating 6 meals a day because you're doing snacks, you imagine how much work that poor pancreas has to do? Just poof, poof. So why don't we give the chance for the pancreas to just rest for a while and maybe go for a 48-hour fast once a week? Boy, your pancreas might probably be very thankful. Don't do any snacking as well. If you're like me, you have once you start, it's hard to stop. So, and another reason is because this food called ultra processed food calories has been manipulated and designed to get you to keep eating it. Even in the flavor, when it says like even natural artificial flavor, do you realize that that's not just one chemical? That's probably over 200. And if you're eating, what's that cereal? Is it Fruit Loops, where they have the different colored little marshmallows? No, it's not Fruit Loops.
Lucky Charms.
Lucky Charms,
I've never
right?
had it, but I know what it is.
So here you are eating your Lucky Charms, and and you have the blue little marshmallows and the red marshmallows, and you're in your mind thinking, wow, this, I'm going to get some blueberry flavored from that. I'm going to get some strawberry flavor from that. No, 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 no. The whole thing is one flavoring, but with 200 different chemicals. And it's very different than chemicals, flavorings in food. So it creates this confusion into your brain, this stimulation that your brain doesn't really kind of understand it, but it stimulates it. So it causes an explosion, like, wow, there's a little pleasure of this, and I got to have one more. I got to have one more. And they keep the protein so low that cause you to eat even more of that stuff. And this is why some people can just eat more than that one serving of cereal, which is just like a small cup. I know it's hard to believe.
Gosh, I think they're up to something. Okay, the audience is always up to something, and they've immediately answered our last question for the day, which asks, which one of these rids brain fog, low blood sugar, the fastest, carbs, protein, or fat? And 85% of respondents say it's fat, 10% say it's protein, and the last 5 say it's carbs. Any winners, please?
I've done an experiment on this, and it's protein. It's protein. You'll have an immediate improvement in your blood sugars. And why is this? I think the reason why it is because protein does trigger insulin moderately, but it also triggers another hormone called glucagon. Glucagon will mobilize stored sugar really quickly from your liver and start to give you some instant relief. And so we have this nice balance of insulin and glucagon working together. So it's like an instant quick fix for brain fog. It's just high quality protein. It works every single time. That's how you correct it. Because if you do the carbs, it'll be a little temporary, like a 30-second rush, and then you go down again. If you do fat, it takes a longer period of time to create that effect. So protein is the answer, Steve.
All right, good. Easy to remember. Simon from Facebook, can a lack of vitamin D cause dizziness when I'm stretching?
I don't think so. I think what vitamin D can do if you take too much, it can drop your blood pressure, because one of the antidotes to high blood pressure is vitamin D. So if you take a lot of vitamin D, you might end up with low blood pressure. And the solution for that is just to take more salt, which then people get dizzy from low blood pressure. But I have never heard that it can cause dizziness.
Okay, I hope you find an answer to that. Len from YouTube, you say avoid all seed oils. There are studies that indicate that seed oil can dramatically lower our blood pressure. What are your thoughts about benefits of sesame seed oil or even black seed oil?
So those are definitely not the seed oils that I'm talking about. If you're doing a cold press expeller type sesame seed oil or a black seed oil or some of these other ones, that's a whole different thing. That's totally fine. The seed oils I'm talking about is the industrial corn, soy, canola, cottonseed, and even the safflower and the sunflower oils. And of course, if you're doing the you could do cold pressed or expeller type sunflower oil and and safflower oil. But here's the problem: we already are getting enough of this omega-6 in so many different foods. We don't need to add more. We don't. We're already over our limits. So I would avoid those. But like the seed oils that you mentioned, those are fine. You can take those. But I'm talking about more of the industrial seed oils that are filled with glyphosate and hexane, which is a solvent.
Okay, Raina from YouTube, what supplements would you recommend for perimenopause?
I think a couple things right off the bat. Zinc would be very important, more vitamin D, and magnesium, really important. And then from there, depending on what's going on, you can kind of branch out. And I think it's really important as someone goes through menopause to support their testosterone with the iodine and the zinc, but also with the raw material that helps build these sex hormones, and that comes from cholesterol. So I I know women that are on a statin, you're going to shut down that cholesterol, you're going to shut down those hormones, and now what's going to happen? So all of these are important factors to think about.
I don't think
Ponder
I've
about.
ever seen a question like this, Doc. Millie P. 1310 from Rumble. How do you feel about the Eat for Blood Type protocol? If you don't mind, what blood type are you? She's getting very personal here. And thanks you.
I have type O, but I don't think there's any real technology involved in that. I know when I go in the back of the book, Eat Right for your blood type, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It sounds like it's a technology that has this amazing type stuff, but it's not really, it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't go anywhere. There's not a lot of research on it. Now, someone will say, oh yeah, but I went on it and it helped me. Well, take a look at all 4 diets. They basically eliminate junk food. So you're going to probably feel a little bit better on any of those. But I don't follow that. I don't recommend it. I haven't found anything like amazing because of that. I would instead focus on nutrient dense foods, okay, as the most important thing. And at the top of the list would be carrots, right? No, red meat. And then as we go down, we got fish, eggs, things like that.
Oh boy, sounds delicious. Kristen from Facebook, what supplements are best to help with depression, that rotten condition?
The most potent one, I think, is be the vitamin D in higher amounts. Magnesium too will help. But I think that would be the best thing for you to take if you have depression. Now, if you have anxiety, that's more B1. Do a natural source, and it works like within minutes too. The other thing with depression is that some people are so tired because they're not sleeping and they're depressed. If they get more sleep and they get more energy, it's hard to be depressed if you have a lot of energy. But I will say that getting rid of insulin resistance and doing fasting will definitely bring your mood up. Also, the cold therapy. I'm telling you, and I'm gonna figure out how I can do this in the winter too, because that cold therapy makes your brain so happy. It's amazing. It brings your mood up too. So, combination of fasting and cold therapy, it's amazing.
Wow, Kristen, well, I think I speak for our show and the people all around the world that are rooting for you. That's a terrible place to be. I hope you find some relief. Mohammed from Facebook, what's the best diet for someone with hypertension?
Well, the remedy would be vitamin D and potassium, higher amounts. But the blood pressure problem occurs when the arteries become damaged, inflamed, and then they heal with fibrosis and they become stiffened. So we're back to this insulin resistant thing as well. This is why we recommend low carb, healthy version of ketogenic diet to help your arteries. And 80% of all heart attacks and strokes come from clots, not calcium, not plaquing building up. It's the clots. And so that's more of an inflammatory thing, which is related to insulin resistance and even like a huge stressful event. I will release a video on that soon, but I think the most important thing is to take high doses of vitamin D3, potassium, and go on a low carb diet. And you can also do the beet powder. I would do beet juice powder versus the beet powders. That way you take away the fiber and you drink it as a juice. That will increase nitric oxide. One of the most potent things that will increase nitric oxide without even buying anything is going out in the sun, because the sun gives you infrared. Infrared penetrates into the body, hits the arteries, and directly increases nitric oxide. So getting more sun can greatly help your arteries. And on that note, have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next week, same time.